Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another edition of Jays Talkin. Matt and Andrew here to bring some baseball talk from our living rooms to yours. Today's guest is fifth-round pick, 2017 fifth-round pick, infielder in the Blue Jays organization, Cullen Large. Cullen, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. It's excited to be here.
We're really happy to have you here, man. What have you been doing during quarantine? You've been hanging out in Virginia. What's been going on in Virginia during quarantine?
The weather's been awesome. It's been really nice to go outside and take a walk. Spring and fall in Virginia especially are awesome. It's been like 65 when it's been sunny outside, so it's a nice weather to go take a nice long walk with the dog. Been playing a lot of video games, as I'm sure a lot of other minor league guys have been. Zach Logue and I hop on Fortnite most nights, so we kind of look forward to that. And it's been like a staple in our routine, which has been kind of in a lot of uncertain times. It's been nice to just have something to do and that kind of thing. Another thing that I can tell I'm getting old now, but I got a cast iron skillet, and I've been excited to like try new recipes and cook with that, because it takes a little bit to keep up with those things. They last forever, but if you use them the right way and take care of them, they're awesome. So I've been excited looking up new recipes and stuff to use with that.
Yeah, I mean, my next question was, have you picked up any new hobbies? But it sounds like cooking. That's something. Were you always cooking, or is it just something you started doing?
I would cook like eggs and stuff in the morning, and that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't go like too crazy for dinner. I mean, I can cook dinner for myself and grill burgers and that kind of stuff. But I'm hoping that having the cast iron skillet will open up like a little bit more interest in doing different things, just because it's, again, something different. It's new. It makes it a little bit more interesting. So, and now that I have the time, especially, it's kind of cool to look deeper into that kind of stuff.
When was the last time that you were actually at home this time of the year?
We were talking about that the other day, actually. I think it was in high school, so that it would have had to have been 2014. Luckily, where I went to college is still in Virginia, and it's only about an hour away from my home. So I would get the similar weather, but obviously we would be in baseball season at this time. So I wouldn't really get the chance to be in like my hometown necessarily at this time of the year. So in 2014 was the last time I was here during this time.
You're not the first person to say that. We just interviewed Chris Beck a couple of weeks back, and he said this is probably the first time I've been home in my hometown since high school around this time. So that's
yeah.
You're not the first one, man.
Yeah, and he went to college fairly far away from his hometown, so I can only imagine.
So you were born in Chesterfield, Virginia. When did you start playing baseball, man?
Oh, I had to have been. Well, I can't remember this, but my mom always tells me the story that we were in Myrtle Beach. My dad had a conference for work, and it was a good opportunity to take me and my brother, who's 2 years older than me, down to Myrtle Beach just for a little vacation. And apparently, I was probably 2 or 3, and my dad was watching a Braves game on TV, because at the time the AAA affiliate for the Braves was in Richmond Braves. Now there's AA for the Giants, the Flying Squirrels. But so we were tuned into a Braves game, and my brother and I were down to sleep, and apparently I just jumped out of the bed in the middle of the hotel room and got up and acted like I was sitting on TV. And my parents were like, "What is, like, we thought you were asleep. Like, what are you doing?" Like, but they kind of just let it like play out. And by a couple minutes had passed, I was running the bases around the hotel room and doing everything like that. But they don't know if it came from just me watching TV, because my dad obviously he played high school baseball and he would watch TV and stuff in his spare time, so it was always on. And my brother was 2 years older than me, and I think he had just started playing t-ball, so I've been watching them play, and I think that's kind of how the interest sparked. I also would dress up in my little league pants once I started playing and go out in my backyard and throw a wiffle ball up to myself, run around the bases. I taught myself to slide because third base was right in front of our basketball hoop. And those basketball hoops have that like thing that you put like water and sand at the bottom so it doesn't tip over. And third base was right in front of that. So I would spray it down with a hose and then slide. And that's how I learned how to pop up slide, because if I slid any further, like I would hurt myself sliding into the basketball hoops. So I would just pop right up and I'd be fine. And then all of a sudden I was playing t-ball, doing pop-up slides at second base. And
Self-taught.
That's kind of how it all started. So
that's That's awesome, man. Did you play any other sports when you were growing up? You said you had a basketball hoop. Were you a basketball guy, soccer, anything like that?
Yeah, baseball and basketball were the two sports that I played primarily growing up. I played a year of flag football. That is my biggest regret looking back. I wish I played football. And I played basketball up until my freshman year in high school. And then after that, I decided it was time to focus on baseball. But looking back on it, I think that I easily could have kept playing basketball through high school. It's probably my biggest regret from high school, which I guess if that's my biggest regret from high school, I did things okay. But it's easier to sit here and say now, but at the time I thought it was the right decision. And obviously I could have played basketball and something happened and my baseball career wouldn't have worked out the way it did. So, it's easy to look back and say, oh, I wish I played basketball, but it did work out for the better. So I can't have too much regret.
What position would you have played if you played football, man?
Oh, I think I would have been a receiver. I don't know if I had the gut to hit hard as like a defensive back or something. And I'm not big enough to play like linebacker or anything like that. I'm not a running back. So I think receiver would have been a pretty good fit. But my high school, we ran the triple option, so I probably wouldn't have been used a whole lot in that offense.
Triple option offense, man. That's great.
Yeah.
So we looked at you just said something about the Braves. You're a big Chipper Jones guy growing up. We know, how much did Chipper Jones mean to you when you were a youngster?
So Chipper Jones is the reason that I'm a switch hitter. I've never gotten to meet him, which I think it would be awesome to get the chance to meet him because I would absolutely tell him that one day. But like I said, I dressed up in my baseball pants and would go out in the backyard and I would act like I was Chipper Jones. So I would hit right-handed and I would hit left-handed. And even at that young age, I understood that he would hit right-handed against a left-handed pitcher. He would also use a black bat when he hit right-handed, and he would also use a lighter, unfinished bat when he hit left-handed. The attention to detail that I had for Chipper Jones was unbelievable, and he was without a doubt my favorite player. He will be my favorite player from forever. So it's cool to have something like that, especially since he actually played in Richmond for a little while. He wasn't there for very long, obviously, but he did come through, and it was a little bit before I was born. But my parents had stories of watching him play there, so it was also cool to hear those. But yeah, I would hit left-handed in the backyard, and I was a natural righty because it was just how I did it. And I think that because I was doing it at that young of an age, it was just kind of second nature. I don't think I was a natural lefty. I don't think it has anything to do with just me having an ability to hit both ways. I think it was just I did it at such a young age that it was just kind of there later in life when I was like, oh, maybe I can be a switch hitter. That'd be pretty cool. So I don't know. But yeah, he did have a huge impact on my baseball career.
The muscle memory. It must have been that muscle memory at a young age.
Had to have been.
Do you use two different bats when you hit right and left-handed?
No, I don't. But it was just one of the things that I picked up from Chipper Jones, and I even read it in his book that he talked about that a little bit. But I don't know if personally it would help me very much. But
Chipper was always one of the most consistent ball players every year. Even when he started aging a little bit, you still knew you were getting a solid season out of Chipper Jones there at third base every single year. And watch those 90s Braves teams were unreal, all anchored by, obviously their starting pitching staff, but you had Chipper Jones in there and all those heavy hitters really making way.
Yeah, I can tell you the lineup of guys when I went to Atlanta when I was 6 or 7 of guys like Rafael Furcal actually turned an unassisted triple play. I think it was 2001. They were in St. Louis, and we were actually in Atlanta because they were coming back to Atlanta that next series. So I remember being in Atlanta watching that game on TV and being like, oh my gosh, we're about to watch them. You just turned an unassisted triple play. That's unbelievable. And then I think a week or so later, Randy Johnson threw a no-hitter or something in Atlanta. It might have been the next year. I don't even remember, but there was some sort of connection to that. And we were like, okay. And when we were in Atlanta and they were at home, we went to all 3 games that series. They played the Padres. So that was pretty cool.
We could be here for another 2 hours talking about all your accomplishments at James River High School. But you earned the Coaches Award in 2013, 2014, first team All-District, second team All-Region honors as a senior. You helped lead the Rapids to a 2011 regional title, 2013 district championship, to the Virginia State semifinals, 2011, 2012. You still hold the record for sacrifice bunts at James River High School. You hit 406 in your junior year, which led the team. You and the team won the Central Regional Championship in 2011. You were down late you're down 4 late in that game. Is that a game you'll never forget? How much did that mean to you, and is it still one of your biggest sports memories?
That actually was a super cool moment. I was actually on JV for most of the 2011 year and got called up for the playoffs. We had an unbelievable team that year, and the guy who's playing shortstop ahead of me, his name was Casey Jones. He actually went on to have he was an All-American actually at Elon. So I mean, I was rightfully on JV that year. He had an unbelievable year, but I had the opportunity to pinch run in that game, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually going to play like a little bit of a part in this, like, and especially as a freshman in high school, like it was super exciting. Like I went out there and pinch ran. It was at the Diamond actually where the AAA Braves play and where the Flying Squirrels play now. So it's on a big stage. There were lots of people there for a high school game. And I remember running out there and being like, somebody had just hit a double. I think it was Jack Roberts actually just hit a double. He pitched at UVA. So I ran out there, gave him a high five, and I remember turning around and being like, oh my gosh, like this place is huge. Like what's going on? And I remember thinking like, I couldn't hear anything. Like there was a little bit of a murmur of like the crowd. Like I couldn't hear the coaches at first or third. And like that was kind of when things started to speed up a little bit. I remember the pitcher tried to pick me off a couple times. And I remember being like, okay, like I need to take this easy. Like this is, I might be getting a little too excited here. And then I ended up scoring on a base hit up the middle, dove into home, did the whole thing. It was pretty exciting. And, you know, we were down by 4 and we were playing a team that they had played earlier in the year and played really close. And they had a bunch of guys that went on to play college ball too. Just a really, really talented game. And I mean, it was just one of those games. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then we ended up coming out on top. And it was really exciting. It was one of the highlights of my high school career for sure, even though I just pinch ran, which is crazy, but it was a lot of fun.
You guys made it to the semifinals twice when you were in high school. Does it hurt not being able to get over that hump to win a state title?
Yeah. The first year that we played in 2011, so it was the same year as that, we played South County, who, surprisingly enough, I was talking to an umpire in the fall league, and he was one of the coaches on that team. So just a little connection there, which was, they stand at third base. So I talked to him sometimes, and he was like, "Oh, look, you're from Virginia." I was like, "Yeah, like, are you too?" And he's like, "Yeah, I actually coached at South County." I was like, "Oh, we played you guys in 2011." He was like, "Oh yeah, I coached it." I was like, "Whoa, okay." All right, but anyway, I think a guy that pitched against us, his name was Evan Beal, and he had just gotten drafted out of high school the year before, and that team hit like 50-something team home runs that year, and they had like 2 grand slams or something. And high school baseball, and that was actually the last year of the BESR bats before they made them a little bit harder to hit. So I mean, balls were just launched all over the place back then. And we made a little bit of a comeback, but I mean, they scored like 10 runs in an inning or something like that. So it was tough to come back from that. And then the very next year in 2012, we played Cullen High School, which is down in Virginia Beach. And we played them pretty close too. And they had a bunch of guys going to Old Dominion and that kind of stuff. Because you get to that point in the state tournament, everybody's got guys going to play in college. It's just about who's hot at the right time at that point. And unfortunately, it was another pretty close game. I think we lost by 3 or 4. And they just came out on top. They had a big inning then too that we just couldn't escape from. So it happens. And in the state, the game before that, we had thrown Nathan Kirby, I think he had like 17 strikeouts or something in the first round of the state tournament. So that was pretty good. And we were looking forward to having him come back and probably throw in the state championship, but we didn't really get there, which happens, but it was still a good run.
So not only you did excel on the baseball diamond, you excelled in school. You were 3.7 GPA in high school going into your senior year. You were on the National Honor Society. Did doing well in school help you advance your career in sports?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think I really learned how to study until college, which I'm sure a lot, like looking back on it, I mean, my brother was really smart. My brother's a civil engineer now. My dad's an architect. So academics was definitely something pushed in our household. And again, having an older brother, he not only sparked my baseball interest just by playing, he also, like, he set a pretty good example for how to work hard in school. And he's always going to be smarter than me. He was just effortlessly got good grades. And I will always have to admit that I had to work harder than him in school. But it was definitely something that was pushed in our household. And I think it did help when I got to college because I was able to separate the two. I knew that if I was on the field, I was thinking about that, and I didn't let the schoolwork leak over into that, even though in college, the schoolwork obviously gets a little bit harder, a little bit more stressful and that kind of thing. But I didn't let it leak over, and I was able to kind of compartmentalize. Is that a word? I don't know. I was able to separate the two of them, and I think that it really did play a really good factor in how well things worked out.
And you had some help along the way. I read something where, can you tell us how much your English teacher, Mrs. Schwind, helped you in high school?
Yeah, she was awesome. Actually, she was where I got drafted. We were at Wood and Iron, which is one of the local place, and I was with my high school coaches when I got drafted in 2017. And out of the blue, she was just like there. Like, we just walked over and we were like, "Oh, hey, like, what's up? Like, I just got drafted." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, like, what's going on?" Like, and I hadn't talked to her in a few years, but she actually was one of the. I never liked English, and I still really don't. I was more of a math science guy. But she actually kind of taught me how to write, and she was the first person that really said, "Hey, writing is just your own words on a piece of paper. Like, just write down what you would say. Like, use your voice." Because before that, you write in school and it's always like very proper and that kind of stuff. And she was like, "No, I don't want that. I want to hear what like you have to say. I want to hear you tell the story." And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of cool." Like, she was like, you don't talk formal to me. Like, why would you write formal on a piece of paper? Obviously, there are times where you need to write papers pretty formal in like a research paper, that kind of thing. And she taught that as well. But for the most part, she was like, "I want you to be creative. I want you to say what you have to say." And I thought that was really cool. And we actually had a really good relationship as a student teacher, and she made it super interesting. And I loved going to her class every day, and it was just awesome.
I read somewhere that you were superstitious when you were younger. Have you carried that into pro ball?
I've actually developed something that it stresses me out too much to be superstitious because I think about it too much. So I was very superstitious in high school, and now I think playing summer ball in 2016, when you play every single day, it kind of got to the point that I realized that I was more relaxed and played better if I wasn't thinking about that. So now I'm almost the exact opposite, and I try to be more like go with the flow, relax before games. Like, I just kind of hang out. I don't like to get all like rah and that kind of stuff. Like, just try to stay as cool and calm as I possibly can, and that seemed to work so far too.
I feel like we had a lot of guys on the Dunedin team that were a little superstitious.
Yeah, they definitely were. I know Xavi likes to do a handshake with me before every game, but if we forget to do that, like, it's more like he kind of freaks out than me. But so there's a couple things I do. Like, I walk to the plate the same way, more like routine stuff. I get in the box the same way. I do the same in between pitch stuff, like that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess you could say that's a little superstitious, but at the same time, it's kind of second nature, more routine stuff than it is. Like in high school, I used to have like my second button unbuttoned, and like if it was like, and I would switch it around if I like wasn't hitting well, and like unbutton my top button and then button on my second button, like do stuff like that. Like, it's just like, all right, like I should maybe be focusing on the game a little bit more than how my buttons are aligned on my jersey, but it is what it is.
You've played a few different positions in your professional career, even some in the outfield. Do you have a position that you prefer staying at third base, or are you kind of like anywhere that gets me to the next level is kind of where I'm willing to go?
Yeah, I mean, especially as the game's changing to more, they like a little, they like guys moving around. You're starting to see like utility type players kind of more and more in the big leagues. I know before it was kind of just Ben Zobrist, and he kind of made a name for himself, and now teams are kind of like, oh, like especially with the 26th man now on the roster, it can be used as a utility type player or a pitcher in the bullpen, something like that. But you're starting to see more and more of that, and I think that's something that I could do moving forward. So I think it's important that I've showed that at this level. I do like third base now. I played second base in college and short in high school, but third base was actually a little bit harder to learn than I was expecting. I made a lot of errors in 2018 in a small sample size. So I took that and ended up having surgery in 2018, missed most of the season, and used that as an opportunity to kind of use that and get better at footwork and stuff at third base. And I think that it showed in 2019 because I was just more comfortable. I think I had time to think about it and that kind of stuff. In 2018, I kind of just they kind of told me during spring training, hey, you're going to play third base. And I was pumped about it and wanted to be better, but it took a little bit of time to get better because I was just kind of, they knew that there were going to be some rough spots, but I wasn't used to getting balls smoked at me at third base like they were, like unlike second base. You know, it's a little bit further away. You had more time to react, and at third base, it's right on you, but you have more time to throw. So I was kind of speeding myself up a little bit, and having that time to kind of think about it and make a game plan for how I wanted to get better really helps me.
Do you still stay in touch with Coach Shoemaker and Coach Graham from James River? And how much did they help you in making your steps and making your jump to collegiate ball?
Yeah, Coach Schumacher helped a lot, as well as Rich Graham. So Coach Schumacher was my high school coach through James River, and Rich Graham was my summer ball coach. So like we would go play showcase tournaments and stuff, and he was our head coach. And I played for Coach Graham for 3 years, and Coach Schumacher I played for 3.5. Yeah, they both helped a lot. Coach Schumacher had a lot of guys go play college baseball through James River. So he had a lot of connections with college coaches and made that process really easy, just have been there before. And with the Virginia Cardinals, with Coach Graham, I was playing with a lot of the best guys in the state. So we were traveling around playing in showcases and stuff, and that obviously had made a lot of opportunities for me to play at the next level. Rich Graham is also the guy who told me that I was going to switch hit. So my freshman and sophomore year in high school, I hit only right-handed. And then that summer after my sophomore year, we were just hitting in the cage before one of my tournaments, and I was just kind of messing around hitting left-handed. And he stepped out of his office and he was like, hey, you should do that this weekend. And I looked at him and I was like, no, I was just messing around. Like, sorry. And he was like, no, like you should actually do that this weekend. And I was like, what are you serious? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay. I'm like, sure, like I'll do it for a weekend and see what happens. And I guess I did okay. And he was like, he pulled me aside after the weekend and was like, hey, like, I think you need to do this. And I was like, okay, like, you know, I was a Chipper Jones fan growing up. Like, it was just one of those things that I knew that I could just like do, but I thought it was just like a wiffle ball thing in the backyard. And he was like, no, like you need to do this. But if you do this, there's no turning back. Like, you know, as every 10-year-old, like I would switch over and hit left-handed for an at-bat or two, like in a little league season and that kind of stuff. But I had never had somebody just say like, you have to do this no matter what, because it's tough. Like I was used to hitting right-handed and being somewhat successful, and if I felt like I wasn't as successful left-handed, I would just be like, oh, like I'm just going to go back to right-handed and be more successful. Like it just makes sense. Like you don't really want to fail as much as you would, especially at that level, and you only have a small sample size to play at the next level or do well in high school and win games and that kind of stuff. So I never had somebody that was like, no, you have to do this no matter what. Rich Graham was that person for me, and he said, you're going to play shortstop, you're going to hit at this spot in the order no matter how well you're doing or how poorly you're doing. Like, I got you. Like, I got your back. Like, it's going to take some time. It's going to be hard work, that kind of stuff. I think like 3 weeks after that, out of nowhere, I hit a home run, and I remember rounding the bases and being like, oh my gosh, like maybe this actually is going to help. And like the rest was kind of history from there. But yeah, I credit switch hitting to Chipper Jones and Rich Graham. As funny as that sounds, but yeah, I mean, they both were huge impacts on my baseball career.
Was there any pressure in high school of like any less offers maybe coming in because you were trying to basically learn a new way of hitting? And was there ever like, maybe I'm kind of holding myself back from getting different college offers because I'm working on this new thing?
Yeah, I mean, schools were definitely less interested after I told them that I was going to start switch hitting. And it was one of the things that I feel has helped me in the long run as well with making changes. Like I was able to make a change at a pretty crucial point in my career at that point. So I knew that whether it was adjusting to pitching at a new level, if it was I needed to make a swing change, like I'm able and willing to make changes like that. And I've done it before. So, I mean, no matter what the change is, it's kind of a similar mentality of, hey, I know that in the long run, this is going to help, but for right now, it's going to be pretty difficult. There's going to be a lot of rough patches and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there were teams that were less interested after that, but luckily William and Mary was still interested. They wanted me to play defense, and they were like, hey, I mean, we think that we can teach guys how to hit. So, and they ended up being able to do that for me. So it worked out.
So like you said, you went to William and Mary your freshman year, 2015. You were named to the CAA All-Rookie Squad. You appeared in 51 games in your rookie campaign. You finished the season with a .302 batting average, including a team-high hits with 67. You led the team with 46 runs scored. You made your collegiate debut. You went 2 for 5 at Ole Miss on February 13th. Take us back to February 13th, 2015. Did you have a lot of nerves running? Were there some butterflies in your stomach when you stepped up to the plate for the first time?
Yeah, especially playing in an environment like Ole Miss. They had just come off of a College World Series run. So they were coming off of Omaha, and it was their first game since then. I remember I had a good idea that I was playing that night. So I was really nervous that day. I remember it was tough to kind of eat lunch, and I was like, all right, like I gotta eat, like I gotta stop thinking about this. Like I just need to relax. Like this is fine. And like it didn't really hit home until I saw my name in the lineup, and I was hitting second. So that kind of made the butterflies go a little bit too. But yeah, I remember stepping to the plate, and I took the first pitch, and all of a sudden I was down 0-2. So I was like, oh man, like I need to lock it in a little bit. But I grounded out to short in that first at bat. I was kind of just like, hey, I can't strike out my first college at bat. Like there were probably like 6,000 people there, and I was not used to that kind of crowd. But luckily in my second at bat, I hit a little squibber to first base and dove into first base and got my first hit. So I was like, all right, like now that one's out of the way, I can kind of relax a little bit. And obviously as the game went on, like you're able to settle in, and the games after that, yeah, you still get a little bit of butterflies early on, but you kind of been there, done that kind of thing, and you can kind of settle in and relax. Like I said earlier, like I try to stay as calm as possible, and when I'm nervous and jittery, like I don't do as well. That's when I'm a little bit more calm. So yeah, I mean that was a really cool place and cool stories that I can share from having my first college games at Ole Miss, because I mean that field is beautiful. Probably one of the top places to play all college baseball.
So in your sophomore year was a big year for you guys. You were one of 3 players to start all 62 games for the Tribe. You finished the season with a .328 batting average. Surprised you led the team with 82 hits, team high, tied for 46 RBIs, team high. You drove in a team high 23 runs with 2 outs, and you hit safely in team high 15 consecutive games from March 20th to April 16th. What was working with you for 2 out hits that year? What was going through your mind when you stepped up with 2 outs? You seemed to be clutch in that situation.
Yeah, I went from my freshman year. I hit second that opening weekend, and then I hit leadoff the rest of the way that freshman year. My sophomore year, I hit more towards the middle of the lineup. So for a lot of the year, I was actually hitting 4th or 5th, protecting a guy that my freshman year hit like .385 with 13 home runs. So there were a lot of guys on base when I was coming up, especially when I was hitting 5th. And I mean, it was just kind of how it worked out. And one of the awards actually at William & Mary that they give out at the end of the year is called the Be a Dude Award, which is 2 out RBIs. So it's hanging up there on the wall, and it's something that they preach. Just a little bit of like a clutch gene that kind of they think that it's helps part of the culture, which it really does. Kind of a little bit of a grit mentality. So I mean, it was something that we talked about all the time in the program, and it was kind of like, hey, like at the end of the year, you be a dude, like you get your name up on the plate, like home plate that's up there in the locker room. So it's pretty cool to be a part of that, and it's funny that they advertise that a little bit because it is something that they preach big time as a program, because it's those 2 out RBIs are kind of what kills other pitching staffs. It's kind of like, oh, we got 2 outs, like we can get out of this, and it's all of a sudden off 2-run base hit, that kind of stuff. So that was a big year. We had a really good run. We hit some rough spots. We actually went out to California and played Riley Adams in the University of San Diego. Toreros? Is that the name of the University of San Diego? I don't know. He might make fun of me for that, but we actually played them, so it's pretty cool to play them in college. But we went like 1-7 when we went out there to California, and it wasn't until we got destroyed by Logan Warmouth and UNC in a midweek game. We lost like 17-3 or something, and then we went up to Northeastern and swept Northeastern mid-April, and that was kind of the turning point in our season that year.
How was getting to play in an NCAA regional in your home state, UVA?
Yeah, that was really cool, and how we got there was kind of even crazier. We were the 2 seed in our conference tournament behind UNC Wilmington, who was like a top 25 team, really good small school program for baseball. And we lost our first game of the tournament, which is double elimination in our conference tournament. So we lost the first game and battled our whole way back to play UNC Wilmington in the championship series. And they hadn't lost, so we had to beat them twice. We were down 8-1 in the top of the 9th inning of the first game, and we ended up scoring 7 runs in the top of the 9th inning to tie it up and send it into extra innings. We shut them down in the bottom of the 9th. They didn't score. There was a 28-hour rain delay or something like that. There was like a tropical storm that came through Charleston, and we didn't know if we were going to play. And if we didn't end up playing, they actually would have won because they were the higher seed. So we came back out and ended up finishing that first game. And I remember I was up in the top of the 12th, and I was leading off that inning, and I looked at my buddy, and I was like, hey, he looked at me and he goes, hey, how about we hit back-to-back doubles right here? And I went, nope, I want to just do this myself. And literally first pitch of the inning, hit a home run. That was probably the craziest moment of my baseball career, because I'm not really a home run hitter, but something came over me. I was like, hey, well, I actually know it came over me. There was a ground ball hit to me with 2 outs and the bases loaded in the half inning before that. And it was kind of up the middle, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I got really nervous. I ended up making the play, but I was like, hey, like, we need to score here. We need to end this game. This is too stressful. Like, so I came in the dugout, ended up getting lucky enough, hit a home run. We held on to win, and then we had a fifth-year senior come up in a tie game in the bottom of the 8th in the second game and hit a grand slam to put us up by 4. And then we hung on to win, won the conference championship, went to the UVA regional, which is really cool because it's an hour from Richmond. So Richmond's halfway in between Charlottesville and Williamsburg. Williamsburg's where I went to school. Charlottesville, where the regional was, and Richmond's right in the middle. So I had a lot of friends and family come and were able to see us play, obviously, and a lot of guys from William & Mary in-state as well. So it's an easy travel thing. So it was really cool to play there, and they destroyed us in the first game of that regional. It was like, again, 17 runs. They scored 17 runs. And again, like we got hot. And so we ended up beating Bryant in the second game, and then played UVA in the third game of that regional, and close game all the way through. And we ended up coming up on top. Probably one of the biggest games in William & Mary history as far as baseball, beating UVA after they were coming off a national championship the year before. Probably one of the coolest games, definitely the coolest game of my college career. So I mean, it was cool, and I'm friends with a lot of those guys at UVA, so it was fun to play against those guys every year. And even that they kind of talk about that game, and they're like, hey, like I mean, good, clean baseball game. There's not really much that you can ask for as far as that. So I mean, it was definitely cool to be a part of that for sure.
I actually had to see and find some YouTube clips of you hitting that home run, and it was great, man. Bomb to right center, and you had your fist up. Right after you got out of the box, you knew that thing was gone, man. Your first pitch, what an awesome feeling! And then I actually watched some clips from the second game of that series. Oh, going back to that bottom of the 12th, guy out at first base when he ran out of the baseline. What a crazy ending.
So that umpire actually ended up going and umpiring in the College World Series that year, and they actually used that clip as an example because, I mean, it happened in the World Series this past year. I think it was Trey Turner was running down the first baseline on a drop third strike, and the umpire felt like he was in the baseline, and they called him out, even though that he was safe at first. Throw was wild or something, you saved first. But I mean, that actually it doesn't really get called during the year because it doesn't happen very much. But when a base runner feels like that he can kind of get in the way of that throw, especially in a big situation like that, like it can really play a factor. And as an umpire, it's a gutsy call, even if it's the right call, because it's like, hey, like this never gets called in the regular season. Like, why are you going to call this now? But I mean, it really does happen. And I mean, that won the conference tournament for us, essentially. Like that. So one run ended up scoring to tie the game, and then it was like, I think it was a run around third base with like 2 outs, and that is a lineup that UNC Wilmington lineup that year, top to bottom, had guys with 10 plus home runs. Like, I mean, at any second that game could have been drastically changed. So I mean, yeah, that was a huge moment in that whole from then to us beating UVA, that was the craziest week of baseball that I've had in my entire life. From just sitting in the hotel room for 28 hours with it pouring down rain outside. I mean, everything about it was just like, what is going on here? Like, what is going on? So I mean, again, like we got hot at the right time, and we were able to pull through.
Yeah, game 2 was back and forth the entire time too. I was seeing clips. It'd be like, they'd go up 3 runs, and then that bottom half of the inning, you guys would score 3 more, and then tack on an extra 2, and then it's 5-3, and then it's 7-7. It was crazy. And then when I believe it was Josh Smith hit that very long grand slam, I could just tell the entire dugout was like, okay, that's got to be the dagger right there. That's got to be the dagger.
Yeah, so nobody had any pitching left, obviously. You play that many games in a short amount of time in college. That's part of the fun of the college baseball tournaments. Nobody had pitching left, so we knew it was going to be us against them. And their lineup, again, like, I mean, everybody was hit. They hit like 320 or 330 as a team that year. Like, I mean, just absurd numbers. And, again, we just got hot, like top to bottom, like 1 through 9. It was just base hit. We were like, okay, like, let's just keep it going. Again, like, it carried over. Like, he scored 7 runs in 1 inning. Like, yeah, a lot has to go right. We had a bunch of hit by pitches. There was a couple of balls bobbled and that kind of stuff. We put the pressure on, but there were also some big hits. And that momentum just doesn't last for one day. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely carried over into that second game. And, yeah, I mean, they had back-to-back home runs in the top of the first inning, actually. So, I mean, it was just wild. We were down 3-0, and then we got a couple hits, scored a couple runs, and we were like, okay, you know what? That's just how this game is going to be. We can do this. We can battle back. We'll be fine. And again, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then we hit the grand slam. We actually had our career saves leader at William & Mary come on and get the save in that game. And so, I mean, we kind of knew once he was out there that we had things under control.
There's a lot of talent in that league too. The CAA stacked with talent. Do you remember how nasty Aaron Savali was when you guys would play against him? I believe he went to Northeastern, and you said something about Northeastern. Was he as nasty back then as he is now with the sinker slide or sinker cutter? Or do you remember playing against him?
Oh, I remember vividly facing him. It was definitely, again, like I said, we had actually that week we played 2 midweek games. We went to North Carolina and they beat us 17-2 or 3 or something. And then we lost to Norfolk State that week too, which was a team that we probably should have beat and played a little bit more closely, but they ended up beating us. So it was kind of one of those weeks that we were like, what's going on? Like, we know we gotta, like, Northeastern, Tom Glavin's brother is the head coach up there and runs a pretty good pitching staff every year. So we knew that Aaron Savali was going to be thrown on Friday night, and our Friday night guy, Nick Brown, that year was awesome. And we liked the matchup. It was just whether or not we were going to scrape together more runs than they were. And we felt like our offense was better than theirs that year. So, I mean, it was one of those things. It was like, hey, we gotta really battle. And again, it was nothing going into like the 7th or 8th or something like that. Maybe, I think it might have been the 7th. I had a base hit to center, and I mean, I couldn't do anything against him for my first couple of bats. Like, in college, you don't really see many top-notch cutters. And as a switch hitter, like, for those that don't know what a cutter is, it's a fastball that moves the other way. So it doesn't move a whole lot, but it just cuts the other way as opposed to running arm side. So normally I have more time to hit fastballs because they're moving away from me, but cutters, switch hitters' worst nightmare. That's why Mariano Rivera was so good with just 2 pitches. It just threw guys off. So at that point, and he could locate too, he was throwing low 90s and could locate the ball. In college, that's the recipe for some tough pitching matchups. And that place is a tough place to hit too. The park's pretty big up there in Boston. We played him in April. We actually ended up beating him 1-0. I think I had a base hit to center with 2 outs. Charlie Gould, who was sitting behind me, had a base hit. I went first to third. And for whatever reason, the defensive player of the year that year was their catcher. And he let one squeak away, and I ended up scoring, and that was the only run of the game. And I think the game was over in about an hour and a half because it was 1-0. And both pitchers worked quick and were very efficient. I think our guy went 9 innings. Nick Brown went 9 innings, and I think Savali went 8. He could have gone 9, but I think they brought in their closer. I'm not 100% sure, but that was a crazy game. And yes, I do remember Aaron Savali, and it was not an easy matchup.
Yeah, I saw that. I think the box score I was looking at might have been that game. He pitched about 8 innings and then struck out 10, and I think you guys got him for 1 or 2 towards the end of the game. And then also, real quick, I saw would have been your sophomore year. Richie Palacios, Josh Palacios' brother, was at Towson, and he ended up winning the Rookie of the Year award that year. And you ever talk to Josh about facing his brother?
Yeah, I do. Actually, we talk a decent amount about that. I always check up on Richie. He's a really good player. He kind of burst onto the college baseball scene. I think he stole like 40 bases or something his freshman year. Like, it was something stupid. And I think the 3 guys that were fighting for first team all conference that year, it was me, Richie, and Brian Mims, who was at UNC Wilmington. And I think Mims had like 15 home runs. I did not have any. I might have had 3 or 4 stolen bases. I did not have 14 home runs. So I mean, those other 2 guys just played unbelievable that year. So I was third team all conference behind those 2. But Richie was a tough out even the next year. My junior year, he had a really good year too. I mean, he was pretty much the heart and soul of that Towson team, and he kind of revamped their program a little bit. I know that they were kind of scuffling. They actually ended up cutting the program for a short amount of time, and they actually ended up winning I guess they kind of went on strike, and they ended up winning and got the program back. So, just they had guys transfer out of there. Actually, one of the guys who transferred from Towson to Charleston during all that was Taylor Clark, who I think was in the big leagues with the Diamondbacks this year, and that's the year before. He was one of the best pitchers in all of college baseball. So just another pretty good arm that came out of our conference. But yeah, I mean, he was awesome at Towson, and it's cool to play with his brother because I kind of get different stories from Josh, and we've definitely become closer because of it. And his brother's having success even as we speak. So it's been cool to see, especially coming from a small school like Towson. I can relate, and coming from our conference, it's always fun to see the success from guys that I've played against in college. So it's pretty cool.
Yep. And then you went to you finished up with a team best 338 batting average your junior year. You had another 16 game hitting streak, a 22 game on base streak. Then you get drafted. Was it time to go if you got drafted, or did you want to stick around another year at William and Mary?
I had always wanted to play professional baseball. It had always been a dream of mine. If I got the opportunity, I wanted to take advantage of it. But at the end of the day, like if it was kind of on the bubble and I felt like that it was going to be better for me to finish up my college education, I also was getting an education that was probably ahead of my academics, I guess. Like I was able to get into a school that I would not have been able to get into without baseball. So I'm really fortunate for that. And I knew, and I was very aware of that. So if it wasn't something that was, hey, I felt like I might have more opportunity going back to school, like I probably would have done it. But I felt like I set myself up for a pretty good opportunity to play professional baseball. And at the end of that year, I wanted to go. And I think all our college coaches, I remember in my end of year meeting, they were kind of like, hey, I think we all know what the next step is here. And they were on board with it, and they wanted it too, because they knew that I worked for it, and it was a dream of mine from the get-go. So it was cool to just have all of that kind of connect, because I was a little worried that they were going to kind of be like, hey, like we want you to come back and that kind of stuff, as everybody kind of thinks about their junior year. But they were awesome with it, and I still keep in contact with them. They're some of the coolest coaches and guys that I've been around to this day in baseball. So it was cool to have all of that kind of work out for the best.
Even with having an injury in Vancouver and then you had an injury in Lansing, is it encouraging that you're still able to move through the system at a pretty normal pace, even though you've had a couple of setbacks?
Yeah. I think a lot of that plays to just, not to tie this whole thing together, but just the switch hitting thing. Like I can adapt a little bit. It's not easy going through injuries like that, especially missing back-to-back years like that. I missed a significant amount of time. So it was a tough pill to swallow, I think, in 2018. I knew that I needed to miss the year. I had to get surgery, so it was kind of one of those things that I knew it needed to happen, but it was throughout the summer, just kind of watching baseball move on. It was tough, and coming into spring training in 2019, there was some pressure because I knew that there was a chance that I could go back to Lansing just from it being a small sample size. And I knew that I needed to play well. I knew that it was, at that point, it was kind of, hey, I missed a lot of time. If I don't play well, this probably won't end up very well. So there was a little bit of incentive kind of to be like, hey, all right, I really got to hit. And so coming back into it, easing into it, obviously in spring training was nice. And then starting off the way I did in 2019 helped calm me down a lot. It was kind of like, all right, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm comfortable. Right back from where I picked up, even though it wasn't always easy. There were some rough patches, especially in spring training and in the off season, even with just like kind of getting back to where I felt like I was before. And when rubber hit the road, kind of, it was, I felt like I was in the right spot even after missing all that time. So yeah, I mean, it was a little boost of confidence just to have it kind of all connect then in the beginning of 2019 and just kind of putting it together throughout the year.
What was your experience like, and how much in the Arizona Fall League this past year?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hear stories. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to be an awesome league, like so much fun, that kind of stuff. But I mean, just to actually be a part of it is unbelievable. The facilities are awesome. They treat you top notch, and just it's interesting to play with a bunch of different organizations as well. So you kind of get different perspectives as from everything. Luckily, Cesar Martin was our manager, so it was a familiar face to have on the coaching staff up there. So we kind of, me, Logan, and Kevin, and even all the pitchers knew kind of how things were going to be run up there. So that was not an adjustment for us, which was awesome. But you play about every other day, so it's not super taxing. You face the best arms in minor league baseball, so that's obviously cool. And day in and day out too, it's everybody's throwing mid to upper 90s, and they got stuff that moves and that kind of stuff. So I mean, it really is a taste of how things are when you move up, and you know you're playing against guys that would have probably been in the big leagues this year. So it's, you know, it'll be cool for years to come to say, hey, you know, I faced that guy in the fall league, or hey, I even played with that guy in the fall league. And again, like just like it is with Richie Palacios, it's nice to see guys that you play with do well and succeed. And you know, especially with the fall league, it's kind of like a little bit of a fraternity. So we all kind of cheer for each other, and it's fun to root for new guys with what we're going through and moving our way up. So yeah, it was, I mean, a great experience, awesome place. We were right in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is awesome. Lots of stuff to do, great food. The weather's awesome, especially that time of year. It's fun. It was definitely weird to not have seasons. Like I said, being in Virginia in the spring is awesome now, because I went through spring and summer and a little bit of the fall in Florida, and went straight to Arizona and toughed out the 100-degree heat in October out there. And so it is nice to finally be back in some spring weather. But yeah, I mean, that league's awesome. It was definitely a cool experience.
How would you describe your time playing in Dunedin with our team in 2019?
There's a lot of character on that team for sure. Lots of different personalities in that clubhouse, but I think that was part of the reason that we all got along so well. It was kind of like we all knew that we were all different, but at the same time, we had played together before. A lot of us had played with each other in 2018. So there were not many unfamiliar faces in there. And I think that showed. We were all comfortable. Even the coaching staff, we all knew each other, or all the coaching staff and player connections, we all knew each other. And it really did show. So it was cool to kind of have all that come together. We did have a little bit of a different year just playing at Jack Russell, but I mean, that was all part of it. We made the best of that situation, and obviously, like, the stadium turned out awesome and great. And it's cool to see all that come together. It definitely wasn't for nothing. So I mean, it was definitely worth it from that aspect. But I mean, again, like, playing at Jack Russell was kind of cool in itself too. It was kind of gave the whole season like a little bit of flavor for us. It's definitely going to be a year that you can tell stories looking back on it. You know, all the rain delays and that kind of stuff. Like, even you guys were part of it too. So it was lots of tarp pulls and a little bit of rain delays, and just kind of figuring it out on the go. I know that we kind of had to adjust some scheduling stuff as far as like playing some home games on the road and that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. So I mean, it was a cool year. Like, honestly, if you look back on it, and we had some success, so it's always going to be one of those things that's like, hey, like, good year, you know. So it was cool.
It was definitely an experience. It was I would say we even had like sort of a home field advantage in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Other teams didn't want to play there more than us, for sure. So I mean, not that we treated them poorly or anything, but that, you know, you just kind of roll up and there's maybe 10 fans there, so it's kind of like, oh, okay, guess we're gonna play tonight, you know. But I mean, for us, it was just kind of one of those things. Like, it was relaxed. It was what we knew. It was what we liked. So, and Jack Russell was actually a pretty good place to hit too. Surprisingly, I think a lot of us got there and we were like, oh man, this is gonna be a tough year. You know, Florida State League, like, the tough league to hit in. Like, this place is not going to play in favor to the hitters, but I think it ended up helping us. So that was good. And it was kind of something that eased our minds a little bit, especially early on.
The opening in the left field corner, everybody roped doubles down there, and then the ball would disappear.
Yeah.
That's great. But
yeah,
really,
I think I hit one down the right field line that hit like a wall or something, and they called it a ground rule double early in the year, and we kind of didn't know what happened. But yeah, I mean, those lines are deep. There are lots of doubles and triples down there for sure.
we really appreciate you taking some time to sit down with us today during the quarantine, and we really hope that you're staying safe up there, and we hope to see you soon down here in Florida. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the fans before we sign off?
You know, I mean, just stay safe, and we're all in this together. You know, we're all pulling for each other during all this, and it's definitely an unprecedented time. But you know, I think that doing stuff like this just shows that we're trying to stay connected and make the most out of a situation that we're all battling through, and just kind of do your part in all this. And baseball will be back in no time, and we're all itching for it, just like everybody else is. And yeah, just stay safe and healthy, and that's all we can really ask for. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Cullen Large. Thank you so much for being here on Jays Talkin. Matt and Andrew signing off with Cullen Large. We'll see you soon. Make sure you wash your hands and stay safe. Hopefully we get to some baseball soon. Take it easy from Jays Talkin.